The strongest child in a dysfunctional family usually grows up to become the most lonely adult. Yes, you were once a child, but that doesn't mean you had a childhood. If you grew up managing adult emotions, breaking up your parents' arguments, feeding and supervising siblings, if your family treated you like a backup parent, if your mama treated you like a therapist, if your daddy treated you like a wingman, or all of the above, you probably struggle to find healthy relationships, probably tend to isolate, have a hard time asking for help, probably feel responsible for problems that don't belong to you, often feel unappreciated, and tend to prioritize other people's ideas, goals, and dreams over your own. Where am I on this accuracy meter right now? Because in this video, we talking about parentification. If you've spent years believing the reason you don't finish what you start is due to a lack of discipline, willpower, or maybe even laziness, stop doing that. Multiple studies over the last 2.5 decades prove procrastination ain't a discipline problem. It's an emotional problem. Your follow-through is weak because you avoid dealing with the emotional part of your creative process. Me and Romani Malco will be hosting a live 90-minute workshop breaking down the 5 emotional blind spots that cause most people to procrastinate. And I'll give you a blueprint for what to do about it. Yes, it is a live 90-minute workshop, so none of this multitasking and half-assing. Bars, if you're ready to be held emotionally accountable so you can start building on your ideas, I dare you to click the link in the description. Now let's get back to the program. One of the biggest lies dysfunctional families tell children is that love and responsibility is the same thing. They not. And some of us spent so much time earning love through responsibility that now we don't even know how to function without a problem to solve or someone to manage. I mean, think about it. Healthy parents don't ask children to be emotional support systems for adults. Healthy parents don't drag children into grown folk arguments. No, healthy parents don't ask a child to sacrifice their childhood so grown folks can avoid accountability. All my boomer parents probably disliking and flagging this video right now. But if you are someone who grew up under those circumstances, you've likely been parentified. And here's the part my hyper-independent overachievers struggle with. A lot of parentified children become highly functional adults. You got the job. You pay the bills. You show up on time. People call you dependable. People call you mature. People call you strong. But extreme reliability can also be a trauma response. When most people hear the word trauma, they think physical and verbal abuse. They think violence. They think chaos. But sometimes trauma looks like being the most responsible person in the house at 12 years old. Translation, you were living up to adult expectations with a child's nervous system. Type bars in the comments if you get that. And while everybody else benefited from your sacrifice, nobody stopped to ask you what it was costing you as a child. Now you 40 years old, still rescuing people, still trying to fix people, still prioritizing other people's dreams over your own, still overextending yourself in the company of dependent people, still feeling guilty for every time you choose yourself because somewhere along the way, your brain learned a dangerous lesson. My value comes from being useful. And that's a hell of a burden to carry when you're trying to build healthy relationships, because healthy relationships require reciprocity. But if the only relationships that feel familiar to you is the ones where somebody needs saving, there's a good chance your parentified upbringing didn't stop it being an experience. It became your identity. Oh, you didn't know? Oh, go get your hand sanitizer, because we going in like 2 fingers on prom night. Buzz! I remember when I was about 4 years old. My father had a friend over at the house. They were sitting in the living room talking and drinking. My mama didn't approve of the company he was having. Now, a healthy adult would have addressed that issue directly with her husband. But that's not what happened. She sent me, the 4-year-old, and told me to tell my daddy she didn't want that vagabond in the house. So I walked into the living room and delivered the message and pointed dead at dude so there was no misunderstanding of who my mama was referring to. My daddy reached back and algorithm my jaw. To this day, I don't remember the pain. I remember trying to squeeze behind the refrigerator so that I could hide my shame. I remember crying uncontrollably. And for decades, I thought that story was about me getting hit. Then I had a son and everything changed. Because when you have a 3 or 4-year-old child of your own, you realize just how dependent, vulnerable and innocent a child actually is. A child that age ain't a therapist. A child that age ain't a marriage counselor. A child that age ain't a mediator. A child that age ain't a punching bag. A child that age is a child. Yet, well into my 30s, I blamed myself for that right cross. But eventually, I had to confront something bigger. What kind of mother sends a 4-year-old into that situation? And what kind of 6'2" grown man responds by punching a 4-year-old child in the face? The answer was uncomfortable, and it tapped into the rage I'd been carrying my whole adult life. Now I was beginning to understand where it came from. Neither one of my parents had the emotional tools necessary to be who I needed them to be as a 4-year-old or as a 34-year-old. The crazy realization was realizing that getting punched in the face as a kid by a grown man I called dad wasn't the story. Oh, no, dog. That was only the trailer to the movie. Because after that came being 5 and stopping my pregnant mama from jumping off a fire escape. After that came being 6 years old and prying my violent father off my mama during arguments. After that came grabbing the steering wheel at 7 years old because my drunk father fell asleep while driving into opposing traffic. After that came being 10 years old and standing guard over my sleeping younger sibling until 5 in the morning while my parents partied because predators kept circling back to the kids' room trying to dunk their mushroom in us. Do you understand the amount of responsibility that was put on me as a child? Type bars in the comments if you get that. Do you know what that did to my neurological system as a child? Do you have any idea what I carried in my heart, my veins, my gut, my head for decades after? Now do you understand the root of my anxiety? Do you understand why I spent the majority of my life believing it was my job to save women like I couldn't save my mama? Do you understand why I spent the majority of my life performing and trying to convince every wounded, dysfunctional woman that I could be a better man to them than my daddy was to my mama? Do you understand why I struggle so hard to just be myself as an adult? I was conditioned to believe myself wasn't worth shit. So I believed that in order to be worth shit, I had to succeed on some crazy level that would make me untouchable. Do you understand why? Because I couldn't trust nobody. Type bars in the comments if you get that. I've seen the worst of humanity and the toll they've taken on the children, the women, the elders I couldn't protect. So believe me when I say the version of me that you seeing is the only version of me you want to see. Getting to the point I am today took a lot of work, but the side effect of that upbringing is why even when I know I could have done better than my peers, whether it was singing lead in the school choir, playing shortstop position in Little League, running cross country, or just getting the girl, didn't matter. I always downplayed my ability because I thought it would make me more acceptable, more likable, more invisible at the time. Mind you, I was in the South, just surrounded by racists at the time, so being authentically accepted wasn't gonna happen either. Bottom line is, I could not make a good first impression if my life depended on it. Buzz! So I stopped trying and chalked it up to procrastination. I chalked it up to inconsistency and poor discipline. You know what I was really good at though? Being a designated driver, breaking up fights, talking to police on behalf of the thugs, overcompensating and being a chauffeur for ex-felons and alcoholics who'd gotten their licenses revoked. Why? Because by the time I was a teen, parentification, being the caretaker, the responsible one, had become my identity. Type bars in the comments if you get that. It was the only way I knew how to function. Type bars in the comments if you get that. I've been so invalidated throughout my childhood that the only validation I could find was in playing small to appease inferior men, to manage dysfunctional people while stifling and ignoring my own dreams and emotional needs. Now would be a good time to hit the like button if you like something, and if you motivated as hell, hit that notification bell. But if you really want to see this channel grow, I'm gonna need you to hype this video and share it with your folks. Buzz! Let's get back to the program. My dysfunctional upbringing made me so incredibly self-sufficient that by sophomore year of high school, I was making more money than both my parents combined and carrying the blame for their divorce. By the time I was a senior, I had a crystal clear career path, which was to join the military and stay out of jail. I graduated into a grown man trying to be invisible enough to survive, useful enough to be tolerated, and still craving attention at the same time. I'm talking talking about being the emotional janitor for dysfunctional people, cleaning up messes I didn't make, calming down grown folks I didn't raise, trying to keep aggressive dudes from crashing out, trying to comfort and reassure wounded women that I was different. That was my specialty. I wasn't confident. I wasn't relaxed. I wasn't comfortable in my own skin. But put me in the middle of somebody else's emergency. Oh, now I'm gifted. Now I got purpose. Now I know what to do. That is parentification. It doesn't always look like a child cooking dinner or supervising siblings. Sometimes it looks like a teenager who can't make eye contact with a pretty girl, but somehow knows how to talk a drunk grown man out of ruining his own life. That's a very specific set of skills. The world sees that and calls it maturity. The family sees that and calls it dependable. Women see that and call it safe. But inside, you know the truth. You ain't safe. You just learn how to perform safety for everybody else. And when you spend your whole childhood being useful, being loved for who you are feels suspicious. Because who you are was never the assignment. Who you could help fix, manage, protect, rescue, or calm down, that was the assignment. And when that becomes your identity, there's no room to build your own dreams. Type bars in the comments if you get that. No time to flesh out your own ideas. No space to honor your own goals because your whole nervous system is busy trying to keep everybody else from falling apart. Type bars in the comments if you get that. Bars! But you want to know where I found peace? Work, not healthy peace, not spiritual peace. Not that I sat by the ocean and found myself peace. I'm talking about the kind of peace a man finds when the chaos at home is so loud that a job starts feeling like a vacation. Type bars in the comments if you get that. Work gave me instruction. Work gave me a schedule. Work gave me measurable results. Work gave me structure. Work didn't make me responsible for somebody else's marriage. Work didn't send me into grown folks' conflict with a message I was too young to understand. Work made sense. You show up, you do the job, you get paid. Compared to my childhood, that felt like heaven with a time card. So by the time I was grown, I wasn't just working, I was hiding inside of productivity. Type bars in the comments if you relate. I could avoid my pain by staying busy. I could avoid my shame by being useful. I could avoid my fear by becoming dependable. And the world rewards that. That's the dangerous part. The same survival pattern that almost destroys you emotionally can make you look successful externally. People see the hustle. They don't see the wound. People see the discipline. They don't see the fear. People see the responsibility. They don't see the little kid still trying to prove he deserves to exist. And that's how parentification tricks you. It don't always make you collapse. Sometimes it makes you competent. Sometimes it makes you talented. Sometimes it makes you the person everybody calls when life catch fire. But if you're not careful, you spend your whole life becoming valuable to everybody except yourself. Type bars in the comments if you understand. Because when usefulness becomes your identity, rest feels like guilt. Boundaries feel like betrayal. And your own dreams start feeling like selfishness. Bars. If you haven't figured it out by now, the real reason you keep stalling on your goals has nothing to do with how disciplined, motivated, or focused you are. Men hate it when I say this, but your failure to commit to your own ideas and even your dreams is an emotional issue. Don't take my word for it. Research has been confirming this for over 2 decades. Look up the Tyson Bratslavsky study, the Soroyson cycle study. You're not avoiding the task. You're not avoiding accountability. What you avoiding is emotional discomfort. Yes, women too. That's the real reason your follow-through is garbage. You don't need another planner. You need emotional awareness. Romani Malcolm and I is hosting a live 90-minute workshop where we expose 5 emotional blind spots likely sabotaging most people's progress, and we hand you the exact playbook to get active on your shit. Show up ready to take notes and be called on. This ain't no replay. We live. If you are done sleeping on your own ambition and need some real ones to wake your ass up, link is in the description. Buzz! Now let's get back to the program. What if I told you that this parentification followed me well into my 50s, where I was just old enough, just tired enough to say no. Finally self-aware enough to acknowledge that many of the people benefiting from my reliability didn't really earn or deserve it, nor did they have the capacity to appreciate it. But an even deeper revelation is that no one asked for it. No one asked me to be superhuman. No one asked me to be the super provider. No one asked me to be the wounded woman whisperer. I volunteered all of it. So instead of being surrounded by equally yoked, equally given, equally considerate, equally responsible people, I found myself being resented by the younger, mentally unstable versions of my parents. Well, hold up. Why did they resent me? Because they didn't feel partnered. They felt parented, rightfully so. I disrupted their ecosystem, and they had no problems jumping into my ecosystem. Eating at fancy restaurants multiple times a day, going to different spas, and traveling the world. But with each dinner, each trip, each water bill, I felt less and less appreciated. Because in my mind, my performance was supposed to bring us closer together. It didn't. Had a bunch of dependents on my tax return, but I was really still alone. An enabler, provider, and the partner who parented dysfunctional adults. It hit me like hillbilly body odor. No matter what I give, we will never be a team. Because I wasn't choosing partners. I was choosing dependence and equating their dependency to loyalty. I thought their dependency would make them less likely to emotionally abandon me like my parents did. That was a huge no-no. So here's what shifted. I stopped performing. I stopped doing whatever made me feel overextended, and I stopped explaining my silence. I just did me. Walking around with everybody, including the nanny, thinking of me as the big asshole in the house. But I knew something that they didn't. Now, I knew what I was living for, and I was crystal clear on what I was willing to die for. Type bars in the comments if you get that. So I only poured into those things and let everyone else get in where they fit in or get on and be gone. I stopped faking friendliness. I stopped with the small talk just to make other people feel comfortable. That was just an upgraded version of the high school kid playing small. I stopped sharing my goals and aspirations with people who were too incompetent, too controlling, too short-sighted, too jealous, too resentful to be supportive. No more turning a blind eye to the manipulative behavior, the gaslighting, and lack of accountability. No more me being the burden bearer for people who couldn't take 5 minutes to hear about my day, my week, my plight as a black man. Nah, I just focused on what fed my soul. I just focused on learning new skills in the areas of my world that were growing, expanding, and evolving in a way I couldn't help but admire. Can't front though. This was uncomfortable at first because I was no longer filling in the silent gaps. I was no longer making it my job to reassure anyone. I was no longer absorbing everyone else's mood swings. I was no longer okay with being lied to. I was no longer mistaking codependents for captains. But over time, it started paying off. My business grew. My very select social circle expanded in ways I'm so grateful for today. My peace was restored. If I'm keeping it a buck, being judged and disliked even by the damn nanny felt liberating. I no longer had to be the good guy, the bigger person, or the one everyone could depend on. This was the payoff of setting boundaries. This was the payoff of realizing that I'm allowed to have my limits. This was the payoff of coming to terms with the fact that people will continue to take as long as you enable them. But more than anything, this was the payoff of realizing that the only person I was qualified to parent was my inner child. That one realization was perhaps the biggest gift I could give to myself and my biological child, because he sees daddy setting boundaries, honoring boundaries, extending forgiveness, demonstrating compassion, only engaging in constructive communication pattern, building a business, living a life of purpose, and being the sober and nurturing daddy many of us never had. Pause! You know what happened once I finally realized how I was contributing to my own suffering? You know what happened once I took ownership and apologized for those very contributions? Once I stopped being the first responder to other people's bad decisions? Folks got salty, resentful, trying to bait me into every petty argument and low vibrational distraction they could think of. Did everything to push my buttons. But once they realized I wasn't biting, once they realized I wasn't volunteering to carry their baggage no more, once they realized I wasn't available for every emotional emergency, they calmed they funky asses down, began to honor my boundaries or jump ship. Yes, the same folks who doubted me, resented me, want to be supportive, respectful team players now. It's always nice to see, but forgiveness is not a prescription for amnesia. Bars! Type bars in the comments if you get that. No amount of money, no amount of external validation comes remotely close to how fulfilling it has been to no longer need to be the reliable one. It warms my heart and feeds my soul. It is so liberating. It feels as if I finally arrived. And I sincerely wish the same for all of my parentified brothers and sisters out there. If that sounds like you, I put together a video that will show you exactly how to break this pattern of being a self-neglecting overcompensator with little to nothing to show for your Emmy-worthy performance. Click it right now.